The San Francisco 49ers quarterback room is absurdly cheap and I think absurdly talented. I mean, they have Brock Purdy, who was up for Rookie of the Year, and let's not even count out Trey Lance, even though so many people have, because Trey Lance could develop into a player like Patrick Mahomes, even though so many people are calling him busts. In this video, I'm going to go over Trey Lance's background, what people have said about him, what he could develop into, and what he needs to do specifically in this offseason to make that next jump and compete with Brock Purdy for the starting job on the San Francisco 49ers. So to understand why Trey Lance is the person he is and maybe how he could develop into Patrick Mahomes, we need to first look at where Trey Lance came from. And Trey Lance was born on May 9th, 2000 in Marshall, Minnesota. Marshall, Minnesota is a pretty rural town and has that small town feel. He was trained by his father, Carlton, who was a former quarterback for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, which is a team that plays in the CFL. He also was on the 49ers practice squad for like a little bit, or training camp for a little bit. And he also played for the London Monarchs of the World League of American Football. And as a youth, Lance actually played running back, and then he made his first quarterback start in middle school. And then later at Marshall High School, he was viewed as the best quarterback prospect in Minnesota. And well, you would think this is great for Trey Lance because you remember earlier I said that he wanted to attend the University of Minnesota and play quarterback there. But the thing is, University of Minnesota didn't see Trey Lance that way at all. They saw him as a wide receiver or a defensive back, much like his father was. And other Power 5 schools saw him in the same light. So he was really just told, if you're coming to our school, you're not going to be playing quarterback. You're going to be playing wide receiver or cornerback, something like that. And he eventually decided, no, I'm going to take a shot on myself. And he decided to commit to North Dakota State in 2017. And I think this action of betting on himself really highlights his upbringing more than anything. I mean, like I said, his dad was a former professional athlete. And I think he really instilled a lot of values that Trey Lance still holds today, like undeniable like self-confidence in yourself, and not a cocky confidence, but confidence because you worked hard and you know how many hours you put in to try to achieve your goal. I think that's something that Trey Lance learned from his dad. And I think his mother and father's upbringing really ensured that he was a man that would be willing to take a bet on himself, even though all the top schools and even his favorite school growing up told him, no, you're not a quarterback. But a few years later, he'd prove everyone wrong by being picked number 3 overall in the draft. But we're not there yet. Let's talk about Trey Lance's college career. For his freshman year, Trey Lance was redshirted, but he did play in 2 games and he recorded 2 rushing touchdowns in those games. So he was off to a decent start for a rookie quarterback. In 2019, he made a big jump by being named the starter and led the Bisons to 2020 NCAA Division I football championship game. And in that game, he was named the MVP in the victory, and he won 28-20. Lance finished the season completing 192 of 287 passes for 2,786 yards, 28 touchdowns, and no interceptions, which was also an NCAA record for most passing attempts in the season without an interception. He also put up crazy numbers on the ground. He ran for 169 times for 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns. And not just that, his performance won him the Walter Payton Award as the FCS's most outstanding offensive player. And he also got the Jerry Rice Award as the FCS best freshman. And this is where Trey Lance's story starts getting a little bit sad, because this is really his last extended action playing quarterback. And that was 4 years ago, and it wasn't at the level of the NFL, which just starts bringing up why people are starting to call him bust. But in 2020, he did play 1 game, and that was against Central Arkansas. He threw for 2 touchdowns and rushing for 2, and he threw his only college career interception. Later, the San Francisco 49ers moved up in the draft, trading a boatload of picks to get him, and they picked him number 3 overall. And this guy had some pretty great measurables. He's like 6'4", 225. His hand span is 9 1/8. I mean, he's really just what you want your quarterback to be. I mean, he's quick, he's fast, but he started in the 2021 season as a second-string quarterback. With that being said, Trey Lance did play in 2 games, and his second start was actually really good. He played against the Houston Texans, and Lance threw for 249 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. And something I want to mention really quick in this game, Kyle Shanahan was in his bag in this game and was really playing this game and calling this game a way that really suited Trey Lance's skill set. And I think his skill set is driving off the defense with his big arm. And not just that, his threat to run is what makes him dangerous, but you don't need to run him into a brick wall up the middle. I think a lot of things with read option, incorporating Christian McCaffrey and even Debo would make the offensive running threat a lot more deadly. Take like a Jalen Hurts type, but I think Trey Lance has a better arm than Jalen Hurts, and I think if he continues to work on his accuracy and some of his footwork, he'll be able to kind of get where he needs to be, because right now Trey Lance still has development, which we'll talk about in this section of the video. But before we go into Trey Lance's development, I want to draw some parallels to earlier in his life, or earlier in his career, really. I mean, if we recall, Trey Lance really went to North Dakota State as someone that had to prove that he was even a quarterback. And now, Trey Lance was basically told right when he got to the 49ers, you are our franchise quarterback. This second year, he was given the job. He didn't really earn the job in a lot of people's opinion because Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't even there competing. He was off the team essentially. But Trey Lance now has the same situation he had back then. He's competing with Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy's bringing his A game, and that guy's fire too. And I made a video about him. If you like videos like this, I'll link it right here. But the fire that Trey Lance showed at North Dakota State isn't dead, I don't think. I think it's still burning deep within because he's a competitor at the end of the day. I mean, that's how he was raised. That's what this whole video is showing, is that despite Trey Lance being looked at as a bust right now, I think there's plenty of times where the whole entire world has called him out and said, you're not a quarterback, you're a wide receiver, you're not this, you're that. And as a person that's gone through that, especially at his young age, I think he's looking at this situation, realizing that he has all the physical tools that he needs to develop into the player that needs to be developed into, like a Steve Young or someone to get us over the hump, a Patrick Mahomes type, and he has that ability to develop into that, even a Josh Allen type. The sky's the limit for Trey Lance, and he really just is putting his head down and hopefully grinding this offseason. There is a concern though that he said he's not working on his throwing motion, and I hope it means that he is working on his footwork though, even though the throwing motion is highly incorporated with the footwork. Sometimes people just split them up grammatically, and I hope that's what he means, because his footwork does need a lot of work. And one thing that gets pointed out, and Jalen Hurts actually had to work on this too, was that his front leg gets locked out, and that's what causes the ball to sail. But last offseason, Trey Lance did put in the work he needed to, and I was really impressed with how hard he was working in the offseason. And I think Trey Lance does have that work ethic, and he also has that high football intelligence that can really drive an NFL team. And I think this is where the battle and the fun begins, because it's going to be Brock Purdy and Trey Lance going into a battle next year, most likely. And it's going to be so fun to watch. I mean, they're two separate quarterbacks. It's the low experience, high ceiling quarterback versus maybe a little less high of a ceiling, but super high experience, and has that calm, poise, collected factor because of that experience. It's going to be incredible, and I can't wait to watch this occur in front of our eyes. It's going to be great. Anyways, I like that you guys watched this video to the end, and I appreciate all you guys. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, all that cool stuff.